Okay, so at this point in time, we'll call the, November 6th Corcoran Planning Commission to order. We'll take roll call. Commissioner Lynn? Here. Commissioner Zachman?
Here.
Commissioner Hargreaves?
Here.
And Commissioner Kozicki? Here. And Commissioner Brummett is here as well. And I'd like to invite you to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance with us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and at this point, I will ask staff or the commissioners if anyone needs to make a change to tonight's agenda, and if not, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda. No changes? No changes from the staff.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. And anyone opposed? Okay, and at this point in time, we're going to open up the floor for what is called open forum. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak on any item that is not on the agenda tonight. It's just if you wanted to bring something to the Planning Commission's attention, this would be the opportunity to do so. We only take comments from in person, even though we may have some joining us online. And it isn't an opportunity for discussion or debate, but just an opportunity to bring something to our attention that can be directed on how to be handled later or addressed. Is there anyone who would like to speak during the public comment opportunity? If not, then we will keep going, and we will look at the minutes from the November, actually not November, it would have been October Planning Commission meeting. And if there's no changes, then I'll just entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I do have changes.
Awesome. What are those changes?
So under item 6, the High Point Gardens, you have me voting yes on that, and I voted no.
Oh, yeah, that must have been an example. We will get that corrected. Rest assured, when I went to council, I did note that you voted nay.
So.
Any other changes? No? Okay.
That's it.
All right, and so I will make a motion to approve the October 2nd Planning Commission meeting minutes.
Second.
And all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, and so then that takes us to tonight's new business section. We have 4 items on the agenda for tonight, so we'll take them in turn. The first one is going to be the All Seasons American Service Animal Site Plan, and we will begin with a staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So item 6A is the All Seasons American Service Animals Interim Use Permit, Site Plan, and Conditional Use Permit. This is a request from Maureen Clipperton, who is requesting approval of those permits and site plan to allow the operation of All Seasons American Service Animals, which is a commercial kennel that trains service animals in the rural residential district. This operation would require the expansion of an existing accessory structure on site and would consist of the property owner, 3 employees, and occasional visits from the clients on an appointment-only basis. So before I get into the application, there's a few different items that are being considered with this request. The first is a site plan, which is a formal review procedure to ensure consistency with the zoning ordinance, an interim use permit for the commercial kennel use, an interim use permit for a reduction in the required number of parking stalls, a conditional use permit to allow the cumulative accessory structure footprint to exceed 3,969 square feet, and a conditional use permit to allow an accessory structure to be constructed with sidewalls that exceed 13.5 feet in the rear yard. So the site itself is located at 10800 Trailhaven Road. This is a 15.11 acre site. Currently, the applicants own 2 parcels, a 6.91 acre parcel and an 8.2 acre parcel. They are going through the process at the county of combining those 2 properties, and by the time that this is, if it goes through the approval process, the 2 parcels would be combined into a singular 15 acre parcel. The subject property is zoned rural residential, and the surrounding properties are also zoned rural residential. And then the subject property and surrounding properties are all guided for rural/ag residential uses. The 2040 comprehensive plan doesn't identify any ecologically significant natural areas on site. However, the western 150 feet or so of the parcel is located within the shoreline overlay district with its proximity to a creek on a neighboring parcel. However, that is far away from the proposed building location. And then lastly, this project is located outside of Medusa. So the submitted site plan would expand an existing structure and have an addition of 2,300 square feet. This would result in a cumulative accessory structure footprint for the property of 21,924.8 square feet. Like I said earlier, the applicant plans to combine their two parcels, which would result in an allowed accessory structure footprint of 3,969 square feet. The applicant is requesting approval of a conditional use permit, which would allow them to exceed that allowed accessory structure footprint limit of 3,969 square feet. Additionally, the building height is proposed to have sidewalls that are 16.1 feet tall. In the rear yard of properties in the rural residential district, the maximum sidewall height limit is 13.5 feet. However, there is a mechanism through the city code in which property owners can exceed that limit through a conditional use permit, which the applicant is applying for as well. For the building materials, the front elevation of the structure would be constructed of board and batten siding with cast concrete stone veneer wainscot, and then all other elevations would consist of 10-foot vertical steel siding, which would require a certificate of compliance from the city, which can be approved administratively on the back end. And then the roof would be constructed in their building plans of a metal material, which also requires a certificate of compliance. All accessory structures in the rural residential district are expected to meet a minimum setback requirement, and the proposed building itself meets this setback requirement, and then all existing buildings on the site, except for one, meet these setback requirements. The one building that does not meet this requirement is north of the proposed structure, but was constructed prior to the establishment of the setback requirement and is considered a legal non-conforming structure. All parking areas are also required to meet a minimum setback of 50 feet from the front property line and 10 feet from the side and rear property lines. The existing parking area is located in the middle of the site and meets this requirement. The applicant has not indicated the use of any outdoor lighting. If outdoor lighting is to be used with this operation, it would be required to comply with the outdoor lighting outlined within the performance standards of the city code, which would be a maximum of 1-foot candle on the property line and a cutoff angle of 90 degrees or less for any standing lights. With a 2,300 square foot addition to the building, the applicant would be required to install at least 3 overstory trees and 8 understory shrubs to comply with their landscaping requirements. Those have been added as a condition of approval to the draft resolution. The minimum parking requirements for commercial kennels is not explicitly called out within code, so when there's a use that doesn't have a specific parking requirement identified, staff looks to the nearest applicable use that's identified, and in this case it would be office buildings, animal clinics, and mental/dental clinics, which requires 1 parking stall for each 200 square feet of floor area. So the proposed structure with the addition would ultimately be 6,300 square feet, which would require it would require 32 parking stalls. The applicant has requested an interim use permit to allow this requirement to be reduced down to 7 parking stalls. The site plan does not address the storage of refuse and garbage on the site. Code requires all trash/garbage to be stored within an accessory building with enclosed walls and roof or enclosed containers within a totally screened area. This has been added as a condition of approval to ensure compliance with this standard. Signs are not typically allowed within the rural residential district, and the applicant has not proposed signs as part of this project. And then the site is currently being accessed from a driveway on Trail Lane. Staff does not have any concerns with the applicant utilizing this existing access for the new use on the site. So going into the first interim use permit, which is for the commercial kennel. Commercial kennels are identified as an interim use in the rural residential district, and they are required to comply with the specific requirements outlined in section 1040.030 subdivision 5D, which is these are standards that were adopted by the city earlier this summer and were reviewed by the Planning Commission, just to jog your guys' memory. But going through those, the first one is compliance with Chapter 81 of the City Code, which is the animal ordinance. Commercial kennels must have a secured fence area to prevent dogs running at large. The fenced area must contain at least 35 square feet per dog and shelter from the weather. The kennel facility must be set back at least 75 feet from any residential structure of another person and must comply with the setback requirements as identified in section 1030.020 of the zoning ordinance. And going through those requirements, staff finds that the commercial kennel standards have been satisfied with the proposed application with the following condition: that the site plan be revised to include a fenced area that is large enough to accommodate at least 35 square feet per service dog being trained. In addition to the standards mentioned, commercial kennels are also required to comply with the interim use permit standards outlined in section 1070.020. So I won't go through all of those right now. Those are detailed more in the staff report, but staff does find that the interim use permit standards have been met for the proposed commercial kennel. Going into the interim use permit for the reduced parking, all seasons American Service Animals consists of the applicant, 3 employees, and occasional site visits from their clients, which would be by appointment only. The applicant is requesting that the required number of parking stalls be reduced from 32 to 7. The existing parking on site appears to be able to accommodate 15 parking stalls. Through staff's review of the existing kennel that's on site and with the proposed new use on site, staff finds that this would be sufficient for, the 15 parking stalls would be sufficient for both uses. So reductions in the parking requirements may be allowed through an interim use permit, which requires compliance with the interim use permit standards outlined in section 1070.020. Staff finds that the requested reduction meets the IUP standards and propose that the parking for all seasons American Service Animals be restricted to off-street parking only, that the parking stalls within the existing parking pad meet the minimum dimensional requirements within code, and then that the IUP would, the IUP for the reduced stalls would expire if the property were to sell, if the business were to cease operations on site, or if the parking demands for American Service Animals exceed 7 stalls, or if the K9 Country Club expands beyond the current 6 employees. To accommodate potential future growth, the applicant will be required to provide a proof of parking for 10 additional stalls, just so we can confirm that there is a location on site that can allow for future growth of that parking lot if the operations were to expand. And then an additional requirement was maintenance of public safety access to make sure that emergency vehicles can continue to enter and exit the site should there be a need for it within one of the structures on the property. The conditional use permit for the accessory structure footprint, the maximum accessory structure footprint allowed for a property of this size is 3,969 square feet, but properties that are 10 acres or larger can exceed this limit through a conditional use permit. The current accessory structure footprint of this property is 19,625 square feet. And going through historical imagery of the site, this predates the establishment of this requirement and is considered a legal nonconformity. The applicants plan to expand one of the existing structures by about 2,300 square feet, which would result in that cumulative accessory structure footprint of just shy of 22,000 square feet. And this would be allowed through the conditional use permit, and staff finds that the accessory structure footprint meets the conditional use permit standards outlined in section 1070.020 subdivision 3. That's also outlined in further detail within the staff report. And then for the conditional use permit for the accessory structure height, the proposed structure would be constructed with sidewalls that were 16.1 feet, where 13.5 feet is allowed. Accessory structures can exceed this limit if they comply with specific standards outlined in 1030.020 subdivision 5D. These standards are that the proposed use be in conformance with all city regulations. A certificate of survey is required that identifies all existing structures on site. It complies with the conditional use permit criteria outlined in 1070.020, and that the proposed building be compatible with the surrounding land uses. And staff finds that the proposed sidewall height complies with all of the standards outlined above. So at this point, staff recommends that the commission open the public hearing and take public testimony. And then staff also recommends approval of the draft resolution approving the site plan, the 2 interim use permits, and then the conditional use permit for the footprint and the sidewall height.
Thank you, Dwight. All right, at this point in time, we will open the public hearing. Public comments will be limited to in-person comments, and if you were able to fill out a card at the beginning, I'm not sure how many members of the public are here versus applicants, but applicants will each get the opportunity to speak on your item. So you don't need to fill out a card, but if anyone else did, which I don't think you have any cards, do you? No. But if anyone is here, we'll still give you the opportunity to speak. We'll just ask that you come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record. And then for the sake of time, if you could keep your comments to under 5 minutes, then that would be great. So if there's anyone joining us this evening that would like to make public comment regarding the All Seasons American Service Animal Site Plan, interim use permit, or conditional use permit, we would invite you up to the podium at this time. Sometimes people wait, so we're just going to give it 30 seconds. But if there's no one, then at this point in time, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. And all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, and we would like to give the applicant the opportunity. I know last time you sort of did a presentation at the end, but I think we would like to invite you up to the podium now to have you give your presentation or demonstration. And then if you could just keep it to 5 minutes, that would be fantastic.
My name is Maureen Clipperton. That's my home up there. For 10 years, our family has been breeding, raising, training, and donating service dogs to Minnesota veterans at no cost to the veterans. We've done 71 dogs so far, just out of basically our home. And we have another farm over on Tucker Road in Rogers. So we train the dogs there at our property and really in public everywhere we go. We serve pretty much all of Minnesota, and we are wanting to not expand anything with the dog kennel, but just to have a dedicated site to train the dogs and the veterans. We spend 120 hours working with veterans to certify them to become certified handlers of a service dog. So the dogs pass a series of 4 tests before they're even eligible to start training with a veteran. And then as we have veterans apply to receive a dog, they start meeting the dogs, and eventually the dog picks the person doesn't necessarily pick the dog. And we have a class right now of 6 dogs that, and these are some of them, that will go on to serve veterans, and we'll probably start training them with the veterans as the applicants are starting to come in now in the next 2 months or so. And this building really allows us a place in which to do that training. And veterans have told us over the years that they don't like commercial structures in strip malls and things like that. Their defensive posture and the history with public is difficult, so they really like our rural setting that we have. We don't like signage, so we're not asking for a sign for anything. You know, we prefer that people drive by and really not even hardly notice that we're there, and we don't have any impact on our neighbors who are here. So we like that too. And this building kind of serves as a multi-purpose that we've learned. We treat POTS episodes, which is like a fainting episode that occurs in veterans. We scent train our dogs that can tell when an episode is coming on prior to the actual onset, anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes prior. And the dogs will start applying pressure to the person to get them to sit down, bear weight on their laps, and then if they do fall, they actually lay on top of them and they help the person's heart rate sink to theirs and help them recover quickly versus having the episode occur and then having them not be able to recover quickly, whether it be out in public, at home, if they're alone. The dogs are also then taught to, once they stabilize the person, to go seek help for that person, and they have go-to people or people that they'll go and they'll actually grab their hand to bring them back to seek help for the person. So these are our dogs. We'd like to have our building. It's already there, but we just need it bigger. And the building isn't meant to house any dogs. No dogs live there. The dogs live in our houses. We have a group of volunteers, and the dogs help foster, raise, and puppy raise the dogs and train them over a period of a year and a half before they go to be finished with their veterans. And so it's really a training facility that has home-like features to it to allow that person to have these episodes in a place that's private and not strange. Because like right now, we're training for these episodes on like a hard floor, and that it's hard for them, the dog, to transition into people's houses to learn those things. So we keep them in a home-like setting through their entire training, because then they don't have those transition potential failure points. So far, we have one failure. That dog currently lives with my daughter in Washington, D.C. with my grandchildren. So, and he's the best failure possible, because he's just like, you know, a horse on the ground that the kids climb all over. So he was just too lazy to work is really what the problem was. So we breed British Labradors. That's it. We have these dogs genetically tested. We've been doing it for 10 years. I have a grandma that lives in the house with me. She's 14 plus now. I have her daughter-in-law that lives in the house that's bred for us, and then the granddaughter, which is now had a litter of 10 puppies 2 months ago that are at my house. So this is the previous group. So yeah, when we bought that property 20-some years ago, there was a lot of buildings on it, so we didn't put those buildings there, but we're happy to have them nonetheless, especially for what we do now. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions that somebody might have.
Thank you, Maureen. I will ask the commission if they have any questions specifically for Maureen before we begin any sort of discussion that might need to take place or motion. All right, no questions for you, Maureen. I do want to say thank you. Personally, we're a military family, and so I certainly appreciate it and know how beneficial that those service dogs can be to veterans. So thanks.
Well, I say if anybody knows anybody that's a veteran that is suffering or needs assistance, you know, let us know, because they work great. They're great dogs. We flight train them at the airport, so they've flown on planes. They go to work with people every day. You'll see them out in the community, but we serve everybody throughout the state, so.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Feel free to return to your seats or stand there if you're more comfortable. The next thing that takes place is just if anyone has questions for staff or discussion, and then we'll, or if someone is ready to make a motion, then that's what we'll do next. So wherever you would like to be, whatever's most comfortable for the dogs. Okay, at this point in time, does anyone have any questions for staff or discussion points, or is someone ready to make a motion? Any and all is acceptable.
I was going to say, love the idea of reducing parking. If I'm reading it right, the sidewall height is being requested because if you were to continue the building, that's how tall it already is?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, makes sense. I thought it was well put together, and I live a street over, so I'd love to be a volunteer. But no other questions for me.
Question that I have for the two IUPs is, do they each individually have their own sunset clause? Or do they run, do you know what I'm saying? Or are they?
So the sunset clause, there's 2 sunset clauses for the commercial kennel, and those 2 sunset clauses overlap with that reduced parking.
Okay.
So the reduced parking just has an additional sunset clause that if the parking demands exceed that, then we would have to look at expanding the parking lot.
Sure.
But if one of the sunset clauses that overlaps causes one of the IUPs to expire, then they would both expire.
Okay, okay. And then, I just am more noting the sidewall height is still here, and we have been asking for a while for that to be reviewed. So I am just, again, bringing it up for the sake of maybe any council members who are listening, that we'd really love staff to have the time and opportunity to be able to review that, to maybe update something that seems a little reasonable and more easy for residents. And then the fenced-in area, that was a question I do have for you. Is that something, because this is training and not,
We don't, like, these dogs, as you can see, they're never off leash. They're not, like, that's not a thing for service dogs in the training. They're always with you on leash. And to be a legitimate service dog, they always need to be under the care, custody, and control of the handler. We don't do that type of thing with them with their training. When they're off leash, they're in the building in the training room. And because passing some of these tests, some of the requirements are you have to have so much of a distance of a stay, a heel, a down. You have to lead them and go around a corner where they can't see you, and it's timed for 3 minutes and things like that. So those are the only times really in the testing phase where they are off leash, and that's actually done out in a public facility because you have to randomly, the tester will say, you have to go to this store here, I'm gonna meet you there. You have no idea where it is, there's no prep for it or anything like that. And the dog has to be at that level of obedience and command and control at that point. So we don't really need a fenced area for them because we have a fenced area at the dog hotel itself, but these dogs aren't like that. It's apples and oranges. So.
Yep.
The other thing I was gonna tell you is that we did get the lot merge done and the new PID from Hennepin County, so that is
Perfect.
complete.
great. I'm glad that worked out. So I know that it is a condition of approval, and so I guess at this point in time, because a conditional use permit is willing to look at the particular use of the property in question, I guess I am ready to make a motion for approval, but I would like to change the requirement for that fenced-in area. Just because I would hate to require something that wouldn't be utilized, just because it would be standard for a different kennel, but that kennel could be reviewed under its own conditional use permits. If I'm way off base, please counter, or if there's anyone else who feels differently, let me know. Or I guess, was it a condition? In your staff
It
report,
was.
you indicated
It was.
that it was a condition of approval.
The condition that was in the IUP standards, let me figure out how I do it.
It's a smart recommendation, though.
To keep the fence?
No,
There's-
to not.
To strike the fence, not
Strike
require
it.
it, yeah, because
Yeah.
it is a different, it's a different use, yes.
Yeah, I
Yep.
mean,
Is there-
we won't even use it.
Is there an existing fenced area on site though?
There is for the dog hotel, that's fully fenced, the fence
Okay.
is buried
I
2
think
feet
we
in the
can just
ground,
count
it's 6
that
feet
for
above.
this, and then we'd also have an explanation that these dogs in particular would not be utilized.
Gotcha, so because the extension or the expansion is related to this side of the business and not the other, right?
I think we can do,
Verbiage.
yeah, we can do some gymnastics around it, but if there's already a fenced-in area on site, I think ultimately that standard's accomplished.
Okay,
And
So-
there was a question there about the refuse thing. Part of our original home occupation license with the dog hotel, and there's no waste on site. It's hauled out. We have actually a dumpster that's emptied every week, and so that's done, so.
Okay, perfect. So then if no one else has, well, actually, I would, go ahead.
Just for clarification, you also run a commercial kennel where you board dogs?
Yes, so separate building,
Okay.
yeah,
But all of these are just for the building that you're gonna be doing the training in?
correct.
And you guys only require 7 parking spots for that, but there's room for 14, and you don't have to make any changes to allow that, so.
So at this point in time, I'll make a motion to approve the site plan, the interim use permit, and the conditional use permit with the verbal gymnastics of somehow indicating that there's already a fenced-in area and an additional fenced-in area is not required for this particular application.
I'll second.
And all those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you so much.
Okay,
Nice
thank
to see you guys again.
Yeah.
And we'll let them clear out, but if, yeah, absolutely, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then we will go on to the next item of business. We'll just kind of give them a second here so that there's no disruption. The second item on the agenda tonight, or under new business, 6B, is Phil's quality automotive site plan, conditional use permit, and variance. And we're gonna begin with another staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Yes, this is several items for an existing business in the industrial park at 7590 Commerce. And on the screen is the zoning map with the arrow to Phil's. This is an existing business, and they are asking for approval of a site plan amendment, a conditional use permit amendment to add an additional dealer parking space on the south side of the building, and then variances from setback requirements and drive aisle width. The goal, this is something we've been working with the applicants for, I think, a little over a year, trying to address some of the ongoing issues. They were able to remove the existing septic system, septic tanks, which is on the north side of the site, which gives them an opportunity to expand their parking area. If you've been past the business, you can see they need to expand their parking area. They've been growing and in fact transition the owners to the next generation here, and they're here this evening. So the site is zoned light industrial, next slide. And as I said, the automobile repair services for Phil's have been on site since the late 80s. The files are a little sketchy, but it is a legal non-conforming business for a variety of reasons. There are a lot of legal non-conformities on site, and in 1997 then they got a dealer license for to have auto sales for up to 5 vehicles. And so part of this application would expand that to have a 6th vehicle and then improve the parking lot. So if we go to the next slide. So one of the challenges is back in 1997, you know, Corcoran was a little different, so we got this site plan that was approved. And the reality is the site plan that got approved really couldn't be built that way. It didn't match us. It wasn't based on a survey. So we had a drive aisle and parking stalls that in theory met the code, but in reality there wasn't that much space on site. So now we have the condition on the right, which is the proposed condition, and a couple of the challenges that I just want to point out with the site. On the south and the west side of the property, you can see what is a drainage ditch, and it's a regional stormwater system. And so the south has a 50-foot drainage and utility easement, which really restricts the ability to expand to the south. On the west, the parking is really at the edge of the drainage ditch. And again, theoretically possible to fill, but it's really a complicated site. You need to pipe it. And so really those are a couple site constraints that we're dealing with. It's a relatively small lot for a business of this type as well. So the improvements shown by the applicant, this is their proposal. Can I steal your Diana? I just want to point out, so this is the new parking on the north, which is parallel or diagonal parking, which is new. This parking that exists here basically exists today. And then on the south, we've expanded this dealer parking. There's a sidewalk in front of the building in this location, and we're adding the handicap stall here in what I think is sort of a patio today. And what the applicants were proposing, and they can certainly correct me if I'm wrong, the details aren't on this site plan, but I think the plan, the request was to stop the paving here and leave this all gravel. And that's what I thought, from what we talked about. And when engineering reviewed it, we do recommend per the code that all drive aisles and parking areas are paved. So that would mean this access needs to be paved. And one of the reasons is we don't want to continue to track dirt onto the public streets is so when people make improvements, that's the opportunity to bring it up to code. So this area would need to be paved as well as the drive aisle to get back to the sales lot. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that when we get to the sales. It's not a sales lot. That's an overstatement of what it is, but the dealer stalls. So a variance for drive aisle width is needed because the current site plan doesn't comply with drive aisle width. So we typically, would look to bring sites into compliance as part of an approval, but we physically cannot do that where the existing parking is. We're just pinched by the ditch and the building. So frankly, it is what it is. But the variance will formalize the approval because right now the 1997 site plan showed something different than what's actually on site. So the way you clean that up is you formalize it with the site plan amendment and variance. So one of the things they're doing that's sort of adjusted is they're adding the curb line that sort of straightens out that line a little bit. And so we support that variance for the drive aisle. It allows them to pave those parking stalls, add curb and gutter, better manage the drainage on site. Because again, those ditches, we want to control the runoff because that's a regional stormwater system under our MS4 permit. So we're very happy about that improvement. The second variance is for a north setback. And that new parking on the north is angled parking. I would note that the code only requires 13 parking stalls for this site, which is kind of laughable and maybe warrants some evaluation because we clearly need more than that. But the angled parking in that location also needs variances both from the setback to the north to allow a 27.3 foot setback where 50 feet is required from the front yard. Because it's 60-degree parking stalls, the drive aisle width does comply under that standard. So we do recommend approval of that variance for the north. It's a similar setback to other non-conforming parking on the west side of the site. The parking will require screening on the north. They've got some trees shown on the plan, but we will require some shrubbery in that location as well to screen the headlights to the north. This will allow them additional parking to help the business grow in the existing location. The staff report includes findings of fact for both of those variances. The conditional use permit, again, the existing auto repair predates the requirement for auto repair being a CUP, so it is considered to have received a CUP. So that part is in compliance. Outside storage was never, according to our records, granted approval. And so they asked for a conditional use permit for outside storage. And so on the plans initially submitted, all of this area is shown as storage area. Well, the code allows storage, but only if it's fully screened. And one of the challenges with the site is, again, engineering requires this all to be paved, plus paved access to the dealer stalls, because again, those are essentially parking and you need to have a drive aisle. really, this is the area where you could put outside storage. Perhaps you could meet enough of a drive aisle to get a skinny strip in here. But the code does require that that be fully screened. So you'd need to fence that storage area. And so we do recommend approval of outside storage for this business to the extent that they can accommodate it outside of the required drive aisles and parking and screen or fence it. And we have recommended approval of that with the CUP standards in the resolution. They may find that it doesn't make sense to do that with those conditions, but we do have an approval condition that allows storage outside of the parking and drive aisle areas. Again, this is the red box where I think it is, but you could do a little narrow strip along this area as well. But it's pretty limited, and it does require screening from the street and adjacent properties. So in summary, the site plan approval allows the expansion of the parking area. It allows us, them to pave the drive aisles and parking lot to bring it up to current code standards, as well as adding additional parking for the business. We do recommend approval of the variance for a drive aisle that's 27.7 feet in width, where 26 feet is required for the, what I would call the existing parking, the 90-degree parking. Which, again, for the record, is what exists today for all intents and purposes, and we're simply paving it and sort of straightening out the curb lines. Variance for parking on the north, where we have a 27.3 foot setback, where 50 feet is required. Conditional use permit amendment to allow 6 vehicle sales stalls on the south side of the building. And a conditional use permit for accessory outside storage, provided that it can meet the standards in the code, which requires screening. And so we'd need an updated plan from the applicant should they choose to pursue that. But again, the draft resolution does include approval of that with those conditions. And again, some conditions related to some additional landscaping to screen the headlights here. We did not make that a condition for the existing parking. It's existing. We do encourage that, but we did not make that a condition, simply up in this area requiring the screening for that. So in your staff report is a single resolution approving all of those items with a number of conditions. I'm happy to answer any questions. As I said, the applicants are here tonight to answer questions about the business as well.
Perfect, thank you, Sandra. At this point in time, what we'll do is we will open up the public hearing for this business item. So if there's any members of the public who want to provide public comment on this particular issue, we would invite you up to the podium at this point in time, if there is anyone here for that. And if not, then I will make a motion to close the public hearing. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. And anyone opposed? And then we'd like to invite the applicant, whoever is going to speak on your behalf, to come up to the podium. And you're welcome to sort of give a narrative if you want, or if you just want to address some of the particular things that you'd like to be considered, that's also welcome.
And Madam Chair, if I could, as someone who's listening to the council meeting last week, if I could ask you to speak into the mic, because it's super hard to hear at home if you don't.
All right. Do you want my name too? David Rasmussen, Phil Kerber's nephew. We're going to be my business partner, Sean. We're going to be the new owners of the building. We're just trying to get everything into compliance and get everything up to code so that there's no questions, there's no issues moving forward. Obviously, all the improvements, as Kendra said, were kind of limited because of that major watershed on the north side and the west side there. Make it tough to expand the parking lot or anything. With the mound gone now, we are able to expand into that area. I guess I did have one question for you as far as the dealer lot and having to pave that back section. What if the dealer lot was flip-flopped to the front parking, and those were just regular, like, storage cars that we had talked about? Because we do long-term projects, and sometimes the cars sit outside. And that's the whole reason we weren't tarring that back area. And we plan on expanding the building down the road. So we didn't want to rip brand-new asphalt out to expand the building.
That's a great question, and we will make sure that Kendra is able to address that.
Okay.
Because I also have a question pertaining to that, once you're finished. So,
Yeah.
and we move into the discussion portion.
Yeah, and then as far as the screening goes, the shrubbery up there is all, 3 feet high or higher. And obviously, as it grows in, it will match other businesses in the area and provide the screening to be in compliance. Pretty much all I have.
Thank you, I appreciate it. What we're gonna do now is we just move into like some discussion. We'll make sure that your question in particular is addressed. I'll give Kendra the opportunity to actually speak to that, but I have a question sort of along those lines
Yeah.
that would address that as well. So feel free, Kendra.
Thank you. Yes, I think there are options. So one thing, and I meant to also, when I was talking about the storage area, mention this. What you suggested is an option. You could move the dealer lot stalls to a different location. Dealer stalls do have to be paid, but I think we could, if we said, take this sidewalk to the south and said this is the storage area, and so vehicles that are waiting to be worked on could move in there. I think we could probably do that. We'd still have the screening requirement, but it would give us a way to do that. And what I would say is, I feel like the way we've written the resolution has some flexibility, and we could work between now and the council meeting to look at some options to address that. So that is an option that we could certainly do.
Perfect. My question for you was going to be, and I guess it's a question for you, but then also for staff to see if it's possible, is right now you currently have 2 access points. Is
Correct.
it possible to just close one of those access points and only have one, or is that not desirable? I was just thinking it would give you some opportunity to, like you said, flip the dealer spots up, but then not potentially have to pave all the way, because now you don't have an open drive on the south side of the site.
I'll let David answer first, and then I'll answer.
I'm not opposed to that. We honestly use the other one more than that. That where the dealer lot currently is on there, that is our main entrance to the building. And then where that other screened area is on what would be the west side, where the diagonal lines are, that's our alignment bay. So there's 2 entrances to the building for vehicles to drive into. So I'm trying to figure out the orientation here, but on the bottom of the key right there, that is our main pulling in customer cars.
This part,
Nope, down.
On the south end, the
South
south
end.
end of the building?
Yep, the south end right there.
where the, yeah, okay.
Yep, so that section right there is our garage door pulling into the shop. So that area gets driven on quite a bit, but only for us. Similar to how ProTech across the street is. Their new development, their new building doesn't have asphalt on it. It's just gravel back there.
So I think what Kendra was highlighting is that in the reason the verbiage matters is because whatever resolution we make a vote on tonight, whatever is included in that resolution is what is the recommendation for that goes forward to the next meeting. So I think what is possible, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that some of this maybe creative thinking about that could be worked out outside of the planning commission meeting, but prior to it going to council.
Yes, I think my concern about closing the second access point is public safety, even though this exists today, does not love that 20-foot wide drive aisle. And so you can't really have vehicles meeting there. And so having that second access, I think, is important to public safety. It's certainly, if we wanted to explore that, what we'd need to look at is how do you have a fire truck turnaround on the south? And maybe you could do it if you came in.
I can turn a truck and a
and had
30-foot trailer around down there, so.
Well, but you have this. If we close this off and put parking here, which is, I think, kind of the point.
Or just giving you some wiggle room for storage for how much is paved, that's,
Right. So part of the challenge is designing on the fly.
yeah,
But-
right, which is what I'm not trying to do.
Yeah. So I think I would need to review with public safety. They were concerned about this narrowness, and we said, but it's narrow today. I think they would have concerns about closing this, but certainly we have 3 weeks before the council meeting. We could certainly, visit in the next week or two and decide if we can come up with a different plan that might look a little different before council. And certainly we could also table the council meeting to the next one if we needed more time. I think those are great options to explore. I don't know that I can answer that today, but that would be my concern is the public safety.
Sure.
So I have a kind of a side question to that. What if we put signage up that was not public entrance, so that it was only emergency vehicle entrance or something, and kept it open, but didn't tar it? Because it's not used as a normal entrance right now.
I think that's a good question and something to be noted that would have to be
Yeah,
thought
I
about.
feel like we might, good discussion. It feels like maybe a discussion next week at the staff meeting.
Correct.
Because I feel like there's a lot of things. I feel like the plan that was submitted, we have a path forward with the plan that was submitted. But if we wanted to make some modifications, none of the things that we've just talked about, to my mind, are significant changes, but they're significant enough I would want to review with engineering and public safety. But it doesn't, my opinion, doesn't feel like it's a different
Deal breaker,
project that
sure.
requires it to be tabled tonight to work through that. I think we could work through it before council.
Okay. Does anyone,
So how does that work as far as approval when there's so much?
so
going
what,
on? Or we approve it as it is today, and if it changes, it changes? Okay.
well, it's sort of like approving and then there's changes to the plat, like the final plat that we
Yeah.
don't ever see. So it's sort of like the broad site plan, the conditional use permit and the variances are there regardless. So that,
It's not unusual to have a change happen between planning commission and council to try to address a condition that is in the draft resolution, and really that's what we're talking about.
Yep.
I think the applicant's saying, I see your condition, I don't love it, I'd like to think of something different.
Right.
And that's not unusual. So, again, I think we want to find a way to bring this site into compliance and allow this existing business to grow in town. They've already been growing, and we want it to be in a safe manner.
I'll make a motion,
does anyone else have any other, well, you are welcome, because technically that's the way we're supposed to do it, is we're supposed to have a motion and then have discussion.
Oh.
But we just are always shy to make motions around here.
Were we supposed to close something, or were?
Nope.
Oh, well, I just wanted to give, did you guys have any further questions?
I don't think it looks very tight, but if you guys have been operating in that space already, and it sounds like the different changes you want to make are acceptable too.
I'll make a motion to approve the draft resolution.
I second it.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. And is there anyone opposed? Nope. So what that means is that the planning commission has reviewed it and they make a recommendation to council. Usually you have, like Kendra said, 3 weeks before it would be on the agenda. At least enough time to sort of look at what are all of the conditions in this draft resolution and address any with some changes that you're able to. And if nothing, it really gives you the ability to be prepared for that council meeting.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yes, and Madam Chair, I'd say to Dave and Sarah and Sean, if you want to connect with me this week, if you want to come in on Wednesday with our staff meeting, we could certainly schedule that. Yep.
All right, and so then we are going to keep moving. And the next item is Schmidt's Hidden Valley Third Edition preliminary plats and subdivision ordinance amendments. And we are also going to begin with a staff report. Is it Natalie this time? No, Dwight.
It's me again.
Dwight again.
Dwayne Kendra Show. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So item 6C, Schmidt's Hidden Valley Third Edition. This is a preliminary plat and should say subdivision ordinance amendment. That's a typo on my end. An overview of the request. Michael and Judith Ball are requesting approval of a preliminary plat and subdivision ordinance amendment to allow the development of a 3-lot subdivision called Schmidt's Hidden Valley Third Edition. This is a preliminary plat for 3-lot subdivision, and then a subdivision ordinance to amend the language for the private drive design standards. So the site is located at 21900 Oakdale Drive. This is a 28.26 acre site. The property is zoned rural residential and guided rural/ag residential. And then the surrounding area has the same zoning of rural residential and same land use guidance of rural/ag residential. Some natural characteristics of the site include Rush Creek, which flows through the eastern portion of the site, and then the 2040 natural resources map identifies savanna, pasture, upland on that same portion of the site. Also, a wetland delineation was conducted last year and identified several wetlands throughout the site, and the property is located outside of the MUSA. So before we get into the analysis, just want to touch on the level of discretion for the 2 items being considered tonight. The preliminary plat, the city's discretion for approving that or denying it is limited to whether the proposed plat meets the standards outlined in the city's subdivision and zoning ordinances. If the commission finds that the proposal meets these standards, the city must approve the preliminary plat. With the subdivision ordinance, though, the city does have a higher level of discretion, as this is where the city has legislative style authority. Any amendment to this ordinance must be consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. So going into the preliminary plat itself, this does consist of 3 residential lots ranging in size from 3.04 acres to 21.49. I mean, really, the 2 lots on the south are closer to 3.04 acres, and then the northernmost lot is the 1 lot that is 21.49 acres. All of these lots in the proposed subdivision would be served by a shared private drive. And the site currently contains 4 development rights. This development would utilize 3 of those development rights, and right now it's unclear where that remaining development right would be allocated or how it may be used in the future. As presented, all 3 of the proposed lots meet the minimum lot standards for the rural residential district. However, it's worth noting that the dedication of right-of-way does not appear to be included in this calculation, so staff has proposed a condition of approval to the preliminary plat, be that right-of-way be excluded from the lot size calculations. If you were to take that right-of-way out of the lot size calculations, though staff is confident that the lot sizes would meet that minimum lot size requirements of the district. As for lot width and depth, all 3 lots do comply with the minimum lot width and depth requirements. However, staff had to use an approximate measurement for the lot width measurement on lot 1, since it is at the end of a cul-de-sac. The way that you measure, or the way that our code measures lot width, is measured at the setback line from the front setback on cul-de-sac lots, and that wasn't clearly identified within the survey or site plan. So as a condition of approval, the preliminary plat would be must be revised to label the lot width for lot 1 to confirm compliance with that minimum lot width requirement. So the proposed access for the site is a shared drive along the western boundary of the site. All private drives within the city are required to comply with the design standards of section 945.020, which states, that alleys and private drives may be permitted by the city council and are subject to the following standards. Private drives in the rural residential district in conjunction with the review of plats in the rural residential zoning district, the city council may approve private drives provided that all the following conditions are met. And then the one that is pertinent is that the council finds that a public street connection is not required for a public street network. Throughout the years, the city has made efforts to establish an internal road network within this area off of Oakdale Drive, and the proposed private drive does not meet the standard as the city has been planning for this since 1994. So going through some of that history, when Corcoran Hills was platted in 1994, it did stub right-of-way for High Bluff Lane, which is runs off of the county road here through the development and ends up at the northernmost boundary of that plat and borders what is now considered the southern portion of Outlot B for Schmidt's Hidden Valley Second Edition. And then when Schmidt's Hidden Valley Second Edition was platted in 2013, it was identified that there was a need for a future roadway when tonight's subject property was developed in the future and included this exhibit of a future road alignment through the subject property. And as you can see, I'll get my laser pointer here. On the bottom half here is where that High Bluff Lane that I was previously discussing is stubbed, and then it's expected to extend through Outlot B of Schmidt's Hidden Valley Second Edition, and then through the subject parcel that we're reviewing tonight. So since a public street connection is required to establish a public street network, staff finds that the proposed private drive does not meet the design standards of the subdivision ordinance and requires as a condition of approval that the private drive be revised to meet the public street requirements within our engineering design standards. However, the applicant has requested an amendment to the subdivision ordinance, and we can discuss that further on in this report. Continuing on with the preliminary plat analysis, in 2024, wetland delineation report found a number of wetlands throughout the property. All wetlands throughout the platting process are subject to the wetland overlay district, which includes wetland buffers, monument signs, and additional 15-foot structure setbacks from the edge of the buffer. The actual size of the buffer does depend on the quality of the wetland, and when the quality of the wetlands aren't identified on the city's 2040 comprehensive plan, it's assumed to be of medium quality, and I've attached a table outlining what the buffer width requirements would be for a medium quality wetland. So as a condition of approval, the preliminary plat would need to be revised to dimension the buffer widths for each wetland to confirm compliance with these width requirements. And then the wetland buffer monument locations would also need to be revised so that there is a sign installed where a buffer is crossing a property line to indicate contours in the wetland buffers and to ensure that there isn't more than 200 feet between wetland buffer signs. As I said at the beginning of the report, the site is located outside of the MUSA, which would require which would require each lot to be served by a private septic and well system. And so as part of the plat, each lot is required to have a primary septic location. And all septic sites are required to have a minimum setback from a wetland edge of 75 feet. It looks like there is a typo in my presentation here, but the alternate septic site location on lot 2 is set back less than 75 feet from the wetland edge. So as a condition of approval, this would require the alternate site to be relocated to meet that setback requirement. Since this plat is less than 4 lots, a landscaping plan is not required by code. However, the landscaping requirements for the plat would require 1 overstory tree for each dwelling unit. As far as lighting goes, if the applicant were to come back with the final plat application, public safety would have to determine whether or not the subdivision warrants an overhead light at the intersection as has been done with previous subdivisions in the rural residential district. And through the planning process, each lot is expected to have a perimeter of drainage and utility easements. Lots 2 and 3 meet this requirement. However, it looks like the northern property line of Lot 1 is missing this easement and must be revised as a condition of approval to the preliminary plat. And then D&U easements are also required for all wetlands, stormwater ponds, creeks, and floodplains. So the preliminary plat would need to be upgraded to reflect this requirement as well. So the 2040 Parks and Trails map doesn't show any parks on the site, but it does show a proposed on-road trail along Oakdale Drive. The applicant isn't required to provide the on-road trail, and a painted shoulder may be provided in the future as part of a larger road improvement project to Oakdale Drive. So for the park dedication of this application, it would be handled in cash in lieu of land. And looking at the 2025 fee schedule, the park dedication fee for each single-family unit is $5,954. So using 2025's fee schedule, the estimated park dedication would be $17,842. So going into the subdivision ordinance amendment request, the applicant is requesting that the language in red below be added to the subdivision ordinance for design standards of private drives, and the language is added at the bottom that unless the council finds that based on current development circumstances reasonably expected to continue for the foreseeable future, a public street connection is not presently required if a future public street connection is accommodated by dedication of a public roadway easement. Staff does not recommend approval of the proposed amendment for the following reasons. The first one is that it does create uncertainty and shifts costs to the city and future residents. Through Minnesota Statute 429, the city does have the ability to levy special assessments for local improvements such as road projects when there are measurable special benefits to the properties. However, in this scenario, we would be looking at deferring the public road construction to a later date, and the 3 lots would be served by a private drive and would have full access. So it would be difficult to establish what that special benefit would be and recover the full costs of that future road project through that assessment process, which would likely result in a funding gap that would be borne by the future taxpayers of the city. The applicant has communicated their willingness to waive their rights to contest that future assessment. However, this would also put the responsibility of costs on a future homeowner at an unforeseen date. The second reason the staff recommends not approving the amendment is that it would undermine the city's adopted street network plan, as the current ordinance intentionally allows private drives only when a public street connection is not required for a street network. But when development occurs along a private drive, it does become financially and physically difficult to retrofit that corridor with a public street. And this amendment would essentially allow private drives to occur in areas where the city has already determined a road network connection is needed and would threaten the integrity of the planned roadway network as a whole. As far as anticipated development potential, the parcel to the west does not currently have development rights, but that doesn't mean that parcel would remain undeveloped in its entirety. Abutting parcels have the ability to consolidate or transfer their development rights through the platting process, and this has been done several times over the last 5 years. It's been done with Carnegie Acres, Larkin Road Edition, Magnum Acres, Fira Edition, and Heather Meadows 3rd Edition. So the neighboring properties collectively include 12 development rights, and with the frequency of similar consolidations in the past, staff finds that it is reasonable to plan for further subdivision in this area, and a street connection through this area remains essential to support the growth and ensure internal connectivity and avoid additional driveways off Oakdale Drive directly. As far as any precedent or consistency with past approvals, there have been previous developments that the city has allowed single-user driveways within roadway easements. So an example would be Bechtold Farms. However, this situation is not comparable to the application tonight, as Bechtold Farms only had a segment of the road network that was not needed to serve the new lots. So, and additionally, the existing home there's an existing home that would prevent connectivity until the future. So at that point, the city was comfortable allowing a single-use driveway to enter, get my pointer on it, single-user driveway within the roadway easement for the time being. So in contrast, the current request tonight allows a private drive to extend the entire length of the future public street, serving all the lots within the subdivision. And there isn't an example of this shared private drive being granted for similar applications in the city, so there isn't a precedent for this sort of request at this point in the city's development. Public safety, maintenance, and long-term implications are also concerns with this amendment. Staff's experience in Corcoran and in other cities have shown that private drives often become long-term maintenance and access challenges. Residents have frequently called the city or contacted the city to request intervention for various disputes and petitions for converting their private drives into public streets. Private drives are not built to the same structural standards of public streets, which do create safety and liability concerns if the city were to assume ownership at a future date. And a narrow private drive of 21 feet wide limits fire and emergency vehicle access and effectiveness, especially during the winter, as snow storage can reduce that width even more. And then deferred maintenance and regular upkeep of shared private drives can result in delayed emergency response times. In contrast, a 32-foot wide public street with an 80-foot right-of-way provides adequate two-way vehicle passing and parking on one side, sufficient width for snowplows, garbage trucks, and fire engines, improved safety, visibility, and long-term durability, and flexibility to accommodate future sidewalks, utilities, and stormwater facilities. So staff finds that these functional and safety benefits outweigh the short-term cost savings of a private drive. So at this point, staff would recommend that the commission open the public hearing and take testimony. Staff recommends approval of the draft resolution approving the preliminary plat for Schmitz Hidden Valley 3rd Edition, and staff recommends approval of the draft resolution denying the amendments to section 945.020 subdivision 20.
Thank you, Dwight. And just to clarify, those are two separate resolutions.
Correct.
Okay. All right, so at this point in time, we will go ahead and open up the public hearing for the Schmitz Hidden Valley 3rd Edition preliminary plat and subdivision ordinance amendment. If there's anyone here who wants to speak regarding this item, you're welcome to come up to the podium. I don't think we have anyone jumping at that chance, so I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. And that's a second from Kazuki. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And anyone opposed? Okay. What we would like to do is, I know the applicants are here, so we'd like to invite you up to the podium. If you want, you certainly are not required. And if you would like it, not so much an opportunity to discuss or debate, but really if you want to highlight anything or share your narrative, you are welcome to come up to the podium.
Is there a way to pull up the 2040 comprehensive plan map 6-7?
We can see
If
if
not,
that's,
we have copies of it we can pass
Sure.
on to.
why don't you pass out the copies, and if staff is able to pull that up, but we can at least see those copies, and then just for the sake, because we do have folks joining us online, then we're gonna ask that you use the mic so that they can hear you as well.
And then also I want to put kind of what I'm saying tonight into the record, so I don't know if you need multiple copies or just one copy.
I think we probably won't have the opportunity to read through the whole thing, but if you wanted to give it to staff.
I mean, I'll be reading it tonight.
Oh, sure, yep, then we will just take a copy so that we can make sure that, and then, yes.
Perfect.
He's reading it into the record. You don't
That's
need
what
a
I
copy.
thought. Okay. And then if you could just state your name, and then go ahead.
Yes. So my name is Michael Ball. A lot to digest here. But to start, I wanted to kind of share a little about myself, my family, and explain why I'm here with you today. My mother, who is 77, purchased this land to build her retirement home. Her dream is to be closer to her family and her grandchildren. Currently, she lives 3 hours away in Iowa, which makes it difficult at her age of 77. She is a disabled, widowed Vietnam-era veteran, and unfortunately, my father is no longer with us to help her with this endeavor. My father was shot in Vietnam and spent 12 months in the jungle. During this time, he was exposed to Agent Orange and was a 100% disabled veteran. This exposure led to numerous cancers, and unfortunately, he passed away. My mother has endured so much, now seeking the comfort of being closer to her loved ones during her retirement years. My brother's family lives in St. Michael and plans on buying a lot to build their dream home, and the last lot is planned to be sold to a family friend. I am here today to support her in realizing her dream and to ensure that she can enjoy her well-deserved retirement surrounded by family. I live in Maple Grove. Career, I'm a private banker, of which I have my security, insurance, and NMLS mortgage license. Financial planning is what I do all day and every day for our clients. So I'd like to think I have a little bit of knowledge making recommendations. From a fiscal perspective, it seems quite irresponsible to have taxpayers cover the cost for an undefined period, especially when there's no supporting data indicating development to the west. The decision appears to be based solely on hypothetical possibilities, which further adds to the financial uncertainty. Instead, a more fiscally responsible approach would be to pass the maintenance costs onto the property owners with a private drive. As a result, the city would collect property taxes on the newly created lots, ensure a more balanced and suitable financial strategy. I believe the situation would better serve the interests of our taxpayers and maintain the city's financial health. I want to bring up some important points regarding the staff report. When making any financial decision, it's critical to consider and present both the pros and the cons to the decision-making body, whether it be a committee, entity, board, individuals involved. Unfortunately, I feel the report falls short in that regard. It presents a one-sided view that highlights only the negatives and the reasons why the report does not support the approval. A balanced report that includes both positive and negative aspects is essential for informed decision-making. This allows the decision makers to weigh all factors and make the well-rounded, thoughtful decision. The report should provide a comprehensive analysis that includes all perspectives and then make the recommendation. This approach helps maintain transparency and support more effective decision-making. Let's look into the facts. In the facts, I'll address the report's main points of concern, which are create uncertainty and shifts costs to the city and future residents, undermines the city adapt street network, anticipated development potential, precedent and consistencies with past approvals, public safety, maintain long-term implications. The report fails to demonstrate any economic benefit that would result if the private drive was approved, covering the next 10, 20, or even 30-plus years. Additionally, there is no mention of the estimate maintenance costs for repairs, plowing, and other necessary upkeep over the same time frame. According to various sources, including the Minnesota Department of Transportation, an Iowa study, and the University of Minnesota, the cost of maintaining these roads is around $19,000, with a national average of $24,000 per year per mile. Baldwin Township, Minnesota, has also provided insight into specific maintenance activities that contribute to these costs. These activities include plowing, salting, pothole patching, crack sealing, and periodic resurfacing, which typically occur every 10 to 13 years. There are already two citywide streets, Trailhaven and Bachtold Road, less than a quarter mile apart. The report has not provided any compelling reason why a third citywide street is necessary. The city has planned for a public local street through our site, but the 1994 internal road network is not part of the 2040 comprehensive plan. The report has failed to provide any evidence for this internal road network, relying instead on hypothetical possibilities.
I'm gonna pause you for just 1 second.
Yep.
Because we're at 5 minutes. Do we have to do anything when we're at 5 minutes? Okay, we are at 5 minutes, and I can see you're halfway through, and I don't wanna stop your report, but is there a way for you to summarize the rest of what?
Well, there's quite a bit, but I mean, the dog people got quite a bit of time.
We did keep them to approximately 5 minutes, so we asked questions, and I'm definitely willing to give you 5 more, so, I mean, feel free.
I mean, I can speed up my reading.
I don't want to give you any less time. It's
'Cause-
just a very comprehensive report,
Mhm.
and so I just want to make sure that we get the highlights, for
Yeah.
sure, that we grab the important information. But
Yep.
proceed.
Let's see.
You were active
Yep,
during the.
during.
Yep,
During February 27, 2025 regular meeting, City Council was initially supportive of a private drive. However, some council members had mixed feelings due to the lead and incorrect information provided at that meeting. Specifically, when council member Jeremy inquired about development rights to the west, Kevin at minute 4923 from the city staff incorrectly stated that the parcel to the west had 1 development right, when in fact it has 0. Accurate information is critical for the council to make its informed decision. The 1994 transportation plan shows a public street running through our property turning north and northwest. However, the 2024 comprehensive plan does not support the development to the west and the northwest of our property. The parcel adjacent has 0 development rights. The 2040 Metropolitan Urban Service Area line is not even close to our property. Considering reasonable city growth and expansion, it is highly unlikely the MUSA extension and conversion of our property to urban development will occur within the next 50 years. Additionally, Table 6.1, page 86, map 63787 of the comprehensive plan indicates lower population growth and employment growth for Corcoran due to regional growth being directed to urban and developed areas per the Metropolitan Council. On Oakdale Drive, which is a minor collector road, on the 2040 ADDP volume map 6-6, page 88, indicates as a level service A road with little to no delay. The report states the city's practice is to direct traffic towards local streets instead of minor collector roads, but the report contradicts itself by not considering the benefits of connecting the parcels with 3, 8, and 0 development rights to Bachtold Road, which would limit traffic volume at this access point, improving public safety. If the parcel to the west with 0 development rights develops first, it would create another access point on Oakdale Road, contradicting the report again. Denying our request could prevent significant property tax revenue for another parcel. The recent sale of the parcel to the west with 0 development rights was just sold to a farmer, which further supports narrative that there is no intent for future development in the foreseeable future. Regarding the future costs of a public street of an unknown cost at an unknown time can be estimated using today's dollars and growing with a 60-year average inflation rate of 3.75%. That will provide an estimate cost at any given moment in time. Regarding the 21-foot private drive safety concern, why has the city code not been updated to widen the private drives to alleviate these concerns? The report has failed to provide evidence on this matter, contradicting the city code. Finally, the city's longstanding policy that new developments pay its own way should be enshrined in the city code. Not having the policy in the city code misleads current future residents of Corcoran. Developments with different amount of rights should not be held to the same standards, as the costs do not justify the means with a parcel with 12 verse 3. Now let's consider hypothetical scenarios. If I had purchased this property in 1995 and decided to use 3 development rights back then, would the city have recommended building the city road then? Would constructing a city road have been necessary? History has shown it was not. What has changed now? Furthermore, would it have been fiscally responsible to do so? History has shown it would have not. The city would have had shouldered the costs of plowing, maintaining, and eventually replacing the road over the past 30 years for a road that was never necessary. Where is the road going to go? When asked the city staff what's stopping the parcels with 3, 8, and 0 development rights northwest of the property connecting onto Bartner Road, they said that is something they'd look at with those development proposals of those parcels. If that was the case, a road may never be needed. Now, fast forward to the present, and we still find no supporting documentation justifying the need of a city road in this section of the city. This brings us to another critical question once again. Is it fiscally responsible to build a city road without any evidence of future development? As outlined in our narrative, requiring our family to construct a significantly expensive public street at this time at a cost that exceeds the market value of the property is not economically viable. The market value of the property simply does not support the expense of a 3 development. No one in their right mind would do this. Following the report's recommendation prevents anyone from developing this property until it's brought into the MUSA, meaning the city's development program would no longer apply, which would not fit with the city's vision of keeping the city rural feeling. Prevent the collection of property taxes on the newly created lots. It could potentially decrease tax revenue on this parcel by hundreds of thousands, if not the millions, over the next 30 to 50 years. Furthermore, potentially decrease the revenue on parcels to the west over the next 30 to 50 years could be in the millions. Costing the city of hundreds of thousands, if not into the millions over the next 30 to 50 years, maintaining a city road to nowhere which was never needed. Devaluing our property and properties around. No one in their right mind would buy a property with a significantly expensive public street needed before development, and even a farmer wouldn't buy because the land, there's not enough tillable land, as you can see, with swamps. In conclusion, the 1994 transportation plan concerning our property extends beyond the study period of the 2024 comprehensive plan and is not even in the comprehensive plan. The report focuses our project seems based on hypotheticals rather than concrete facts and data available. However, the study does acknowledge the report's concern and suggests right-of-way prevention noted on page 85 as a way to mitigate these measures. Our creative approach not only aligns with the city code, but also supports the 2024 comprehensive plan. I believe this position is both practical and in line with the city's vision and city voters' vision of what they want their city to look like, being keep the rural feeling Corcoran and allow them to use the development rights within a reasonable manner. Thank you for your time. Lot done, unraveled.
Okay, thank you very much, and I have a copy if anyone wanted, and there are also additionals if you wanted to have that. But because it's been said, it's entered into the record for the meeting minutes and as well. So at this point in time, what we will do is begin, unless someone, you're always welcome to make a motion at any point in time. But if there is commission discussion and questions that would like to take place first, then. Can you just, I know that,
Am I not
yes.
in the- okay,
Well, it's like
sorry.
a basketball range, and I just really want to make sure they hear you.
Yeah, I have quite a few questions because it seems like it's very difficult to go forward with the site plan, with the wetlands where they are, with the High Bluff Lane coming in, and then the connector road to the south of Oakdale Drive, and having to line up with the new public road on your property, because if you're going to have a public road crossing Oakdale Drive, they have to line up. You don't want one over way to the west and one a little further east. So looking at the site plan that you show the road connecting from High Bluff and then coming up and connecting the public road through your property, if they used the layout that's on here, your whole site plan would have to be revised because
You're on, I think you're looking at the map on page 6, right? Page 6 of 13, the one that
Yes,
indicated.
6 of
Is it
13.
possible for you to pull it up?
If you can just switch it over, I got it on the slides
Awesome,
here.
thank you.
Are you referring to this one, Commissioner Gazicki?
Yes,
Yes.
because I'm just not clear how the proposed public road would fit with his site plan, because his private drive is way over on the west side of the property. So the road, the public road to the south would have to come over and align with that. I guess if that's a possibility, and there are no development I guess there would be one development right on the property to the west, because somebody could build a home on that, correct? No? Nothing?
Not
An outlaw?
necessarily. If they've used all their development rights and they have one large chunk of land left, it is possible that there is a lot that has no development rights.
So it's like an
But they do
outlaw.
have
So it is an outlaw, but here,
Okay.
let talk.
When we go through the planning process, our current policy is to not allow for undevelopable lots, outlot or lot, or otherwise. So when that property to the west was platted, I'm not sure when it was platted, that wasn't what the city's policy was. So it was platted without any development rights. So right now, it doesn't have any. That doesn't mean that it can't have some transfer to it from an adjacent parcel. There's properties to the north and west of that property have development rights right now, and we've seen properties consolidate them and kind of distribute them.
But,
But that's still a hypothetical.
yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of hypotheticals in development, that's the exercise of planning. So
Yeah.
the reality is, yes, there is development rights, and in the last 5 years, we've processed 5 plats where a lot that was previously did not have any development rights gained a development right through them.
What's gonna prompt anybody to join that road that comes into the north and west of their property? Who's gonna join that road? Who's gonna connect to it?
So our engineering team, as we have been looking at internal connections, Oakdale Drive is a fairly busy road, and it's more, while it has good service levels, it is, the curves in it can make it a challenging road, and there have been unsafe situations that happen. So the goal is we don't want any more driveways onto Oakdale Drive. We want an internal road connection that ultimately can even alleviate some of the traffic onto Oakdale Drive, especially as this area continues to grow. So as the properties to the west and the north continue to develop, that is where the road will continue to extend.
Will there have to be turn lanes?
Not for this.
And there won't have to be an easement for future turn lanes?
That is not part of the current proposal, and that was not part of the engineering review. As far as the location of the road, just to answer that though, so what you're seeing right now is a concept location in the staff report from
2013, yeah, this was an exhibit from the 2013 staff report from Schmidt's Hidden Valley Second Edition. Engineering took a look at this with an infrastructure study back in 2024, and they actually found that the alignment along the western part of the site, which is aligning with what the applicants are showing for the private drive, is the ideal location for that intersection on Oakdale Drive, just due to the sight lines. So this exhibit is subject to shift slightly, so it's likely that whoever's the owner of the southern parcel would have to work the right-of-way through their site to align with High Bluff Lane to the south, and then the future
Public road to the west of
of
the
the north
property.
here.
Doesn't that road go right through wetland 3 on page 8?
That one
That
does, but
road
the
is,
other one won't.
that concept though is 11 years old. So
Right.
what he was just indicating is that
If you went to the west,
the
it wouldn't.
alignment would be different than what is shown in that visual.
And sometimes wetlands are impacted for roads if there's reasoning for it. And the reasoning for the current location as proposed by the applicant when he went through the feasibility process was that it does allow for better view lines and it's safer, so.
So if he is allowed to do a private drive that would line up on the west side and also with the south, going south, couldn't there be some type of an escrow account and an easement to allow for a public road if the property's developed, and then the escrow account would
No,
help?
we wouldn't be able to hold an escrow account indefinitely for the cost of the road improvements. So that was part of the staff analysis, is it is challenge. Essentially what we're trying to prevent from the staff level is a funding gap to eventually bring it up to city street standards. Because there really is not a great way for us to ensure that there won't be a funding gap, and any funding gap would be borne by the taxpayers. And then additionally, what we are able to assess to the property owners along the private drive, that it would be borne by them. And typically it's the subdivider, I mean, not typically, that has been our practice as a city, is the subdividers, the developers that are requesting the subdivision, they're the ones that put in the infrastructure to serve it.
Not the future purchasers
Not the
of the
purchase,
lots in
yeah,
the
exactly,
subdivision.
especially if we're talking 30, 40 years down the road. I don't think it's gonna necessarily be that long, but particularly if it were, that could be a very unexpected cost for someone who was not a part of the original purchase.
For my learning, if I'm a prospective possible buyer of land for my own property or for development and investment, whatever it might be, by looking at this, it doesn't indicate anything. How would someone exercise diligence to foresee something like this?
Is there a map that shows the proposed network of streets?
Well, and part
I
of
think
my
that's the
question,
question.
well, it's also, should it somehow be indicated on this 2040 comprehensive plan map?
So local streets are not shown on the 2040 plan. It'd be very difficult to do that in an effective way. So we are major in roadways, including minor collectors, and that's the lowest level of road that we show for proposed road network. But this was, anytime we received a call, for this particular property with this road alignment shown, anytime we received a call on the staff level, anytime we sat down with someone to discuss this property, we make it very clear that this road alignment was, this roadway construction was a condition of approval of the previous plat. The property owner that originally had this and sold it to them was also very aware of that condition. So we did everything we could from the city level to make it clear that this would be a requirement of replatting the lot.
And does that have to be disclosed from the previous owner to the new owner?
I don't know that they did. I certainly know that I had conversations, Kendra had conversations with the previous property owners, and I had conversations with anyone who called in about it. And that would be the first thing that we did, is we would email out the staff report that showed this road alignment and showed the condition.
And I think if you pull up, are you able to get up the map that's on page 4 of 13? It's like 2 pages back. But, you know, with the idea of putting everything onto Oakdale or Bechtel just to address, you know, your hypothetical, the reality is that every neighborhood has those roads that go through the neighborhood. And you can see it in the southwestern corner of the map that's on page 4 of the staff report. You can't have everything end in a cul-de-sac. It will eventually have, like, to drive through as you plan for those neighborhoods to be there. So I understand the frustration of the predicament. But being that there's documentation at the city level of it being addressed in both 2013 and 1994, I am inclined to believe that this does not meet that. See, in the southwestern corner, you see those small roads. Like, that's what we're talking about here, is a road that is driving through, not having everything, you know, exit onto Oakdale Drive or Bechtel. So it's the precursor to one of those roads then being a way to drive through the neighborhood so that you don't have to get on one of those major roads. So I feel the frustration. I understand the like, how is this even going to be economically feasible? But the fact that the documentation is there indicates that it doesn't meet that requirement of being able to have a private drive. And we have to have some of those legislative things in order to guide decisions, whether they make us a little bit uncomfortable, because we understand that it does make it financially difficult to develop this site in a way that can cover that cost. I'm not sure that I foresee any other way through, but
Is there any, this is wild, right, but is there any possible way that the road could be phased investment and a phased approach by the owner, well, that makes it more palatable or feasible over time, given that it's not an urgent need at all, like anytime soon?
So
I
the road
understand
is
that argument.
needed to serve the lot though that I believe his mother wants to live on, because that's the 21 acre lot, that's the one that I believe they're keeping. So the private drive, the road, whatever you want to call it, would need to be constructed to serve those lots. I don't think having part of it be a private drive and then gradually phasing it, I don't think that actually ultimately helps with the cost. So I think the one little bit of a compromise that I was able to talk through with, well, me and Dwight were able to talk through with our engineering team was we do have a standard, the staff report was written on the assumption of a 32-foot wide pavement. One way to get it down a little bit closer to the private drive standard of 21 feet wide would be to only allow parking on one side, and that would reduce the pavement needed to 28 feet. But it still would meet a city standard. And then if we do ever, the downside of that being if, there really shouldn't be any parking on Oakdale, so parking, that may be that there may be not enough parking, but there are also very long driveways to serve the 3 lots, so it could be that we reserve that, just that portion as a future problem, rather than the whole road as a future problem. So.
I would think a narrower road would be feasible. Who needs parking on 2 sides of the street like that? I mean, that seems kind of silly to me. I think we get carried away with our road width sometimes.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that compromise is not the way it's drafted at the moment.
I believe we just said it needs to be built to city street standards, and that is one of our city street standards. It's just the way the staff analysis was written. It was assuming the difference between it was 32 feet and versus 21 feet. And when I was looking at the standards a bit more, I was like, oh, well, if we just say no parking on one side, if we're comfortable with that, then that could get us down to 28.
Would they have to have a variance or?
No, that would just be, again, working through an engineering standards, so.
That seems like one possible option. I mean, these sites around it, they could combine, the site with 8 development rights with this, and they could do the open space or green space and double their rights and
Yeah, they're
preserve
just across the
half,
street on
half
Bechtel
of it.
Farms. Bechtel Farms was consolidation of about, I believe, 12 rights. And they had to build so.
If you combine with that, you'd have 16 rights.
Correct, and there's even
An
gonna be
outlot.
one remaining right on here, and it's not very clear how that's gonna be used.
That was gonna be my only other question for staff, which was, why does that need to be provided?
It just needs, we just need to know where it gets assigned to, but they have one right, and so they could sell that off, but we don't have, there's really not a clear way that they would be able to get another compliant lot with how they've divided that.
Yeah,
So.
I was just wondering why, because that was a condition of approval, was that they provide the ghost plat for that, and I was just curious.
Oh, well,
what
just
that
because
is
we could
for.
be wrong, we'd like to see their idea. If they don't have an idea, ultimately what we need is to know where that development rate's gonna be assigned. That's ultimately what we need from the exercise. And they might have another idea. They might, this is how we were imagining the 4th rate. But, and we like to kind of work through that now so that there's no unclear expectations later on that they could use the 4th development right when there really wasn't a way to do that. So
I
that's,
see, so you would like to, along with sort of the site plan approval, indicate that, yes, what you're thinking is possible versus, no, it's not possible in the future, but you're still.
either way, they have the right, but,
Sure.
but all that to say
Yes,
that there's the
it could be
potential
sold
for it
to
be
a neighbor if it
consolidated,
can't be
yes.
used on the property. Okay. All right, so does anyone else have any otherwise?
Yeah, I do. If they decided to go the narrower road, the one that currently has the cul-de-sac end on the end, would that have to connect to that future road, or could it still be a cul-de-sac?
No, it needs to connect. The whole purpose of this is we want an internal road connection to alleviate driveways on both Bechtold and Oakdale. So it will eventually need to connect.
So I'm talking about the road that goes to the property that has 0 development rights.
Yes, the whole roadway network is supposed to connect.
So who provides for the network that's south of Oakdale? Who does that?
The subdivider. So
Is the applicant the subdivider?
not for the one south of Oak Hill,
Okay.
no. But they will, the subdivider, whoever comes in for that lot to, whatever that situation may be, that'll be the same, it'll be the same discussion, same expectations.
Okay, okay.
So they would have to align with his.
Correct.
road.
He gets the benefit of the landing point, and so that'll be whoever comes in now, he's gonna have to deal with the landing point that's established to the south and the landing point now to the north.
But he could currently move that road to the,
I think at this point, the argument that was made by the applicant that it was safer has been vetted by engineering, and they agree. So this is now where we would recommend the location of this road.
what's shown on that one map? I thought
Right
you wanted
here, what is shown right
What
here.
is shown
To the
on
far
this-
west.
Yeah,
Oh.
this has now been fully vetted by engineering, whereas the previous map from 2013 was a concept, very
Oh, okay.
high-level concept.
Is it possible to subdivide it into the 4 lots, and that way, you know, you can definitely make more money selling 3 additional lots?
We tried to, but with the 2 wetlands there, it's hard, and where the drainage ponds have to go, or storm management ponds it would be tough.
And is that because of the minimum width of the lots?
Well, we had a concept plan that did have it, but I defer to, he's been working with his engineer, so I defer to the reasoning. But we did have a concept plan that did show that they could comply with the minimum requirements in theory, so,
With
to get 4 lots.
To get 4 lots?
Yeah.
Because that might make it more financially feasible. It's a difficult site, but it's a beautiful site. I've been out there.
Yeah, we already got 2 deer out there, so.
Nice. Yeah, and having that property where it goes around into that, by the creek and everything, is very nice.
It's fun.
I did want to just say, you know, it's tough, and it all is hypotheticals, and it's hard to envision development. We all live on streets that we're probably glad that planning happened a long time before we were there to make it all look and flow together. I think that that's a good opportunity for compromise. And I did want to say, Dwight, I thought this analysis, providing the context of other situations and historical of the city was really helpful, so thanks for including that.
At this point in time, I will make a motion to recommend approval of both of the draft resolutions. So that would be to, if I go back, just for, it means it recommends approval of the preliminary plat, but the recommendation for approval of the draft denies the zoning ordinance amendment.
So by approving both, you're denying the private drive,
Correct.
which is the staff recommendation.
Correct.
But that gives them the opportunity to go back and possibly try to rework it or put in.
Well, there is a motion, so when there is a motion, we either have to have a second or let it die. But the discussion ceases until there's a second or a dead resolution. And then if there's more discussion that needs to be had, then we can have more discussion.
Yeah, I agree, it's pretty hard to do anything else with it at this point.
I'll second.
Okay, and is there any additional discussion that needs to take place? Because we do have a motion and a second.
Madam Chair, just to answer your question, yes, we can work with the applicant to go through the options for the street standards.
If there's no additional discussion, then
I didn't hear that.
she said that she would go through with the applicant because it doesn't specifically list out the standards. It just says that the road would need to be engineered to city standards, and so she would work out with the applicant those city standards
It could be
for
less,
the road.
less wide city standard.
Okay, and so then we have a motion and a second, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? Okay, so then at this point, then the recommendation would go before council, and I'm not sure, staff would be happy to give you an idea of when that would be on their agenda.
November 25th.
Do it.
Okay, sorry. I have the calendar up.
So then November 22nd, the
25th.
25th, excuse me. But no, that's Thanksgiving, so that week is a Tuesday.
November 27th is Thanksgiving.
Yeah, November 25th is that Tuesday.
Oh, thank you.
I'm like, what year am I in?
So usually council meetings are on Thursdays, like planning
Okay.
commission, but that is the week of Thanksgiving.
Yep.
So that council meeting will be on same time, but on Tuesday.
Oh, Tuesday, I thought it was Monday. Okay, perfect.
It was Monday, I mean, there was a scheduling
conflict.
conflict.
Oh, yeah.
So yes,
I'm on
it
the
is-
city.
Perfect, because I had conflict too, but I was gonna be, this is more important, so, awesome.
And
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you for your dad's service, we do appreciate that as well. And for your time in coming tonight, thank you. Okay, so we have one final item of business before us tonight, and this is the Branstead Garage conditional use permit. And we will begin this with a staff report. Dwight?
I'll end
Is your
this off
voice
with-
hurting yet, or?
I'm not used to this many reports. You guys are gonna get sick of me pretty soon. Item 6D is the Branstead Garage conditional use permit. This is a request from Josh and Kelsey Branstead. They're requesting approval of a conditional use permit to allow the construction of an accessory building that would exceed the allowed accessory structure footprint of 3,969 square feet, as well as exceeding the height limit of 10 feet in the side yard. So the site is located at 7121 Old Settlers Road. This is a 19.75 acre site. It is zoned rural residential and guided rural/ag residential. And the same is true with the surrounding properties. They are also zoned rural residential and guided rural/ag residential. There are no ecologically significant natural areas identified on this site within the 2040 comprehensive plan. A wetland delineation was conducted earlier this year and identified a wetland complex along the western portion of the property, as well as two smaller wetlands located on the eastern arm north of the driveway. The proposed structure is not located near any of these delineated areas. The site is also located outside of the MUSA. The minimum setbacks for accessory structures in the rural residential are 50 feet from the front property line, 20 feet from the side property line, 15 feet from the rear property line. The proposed structure complies with all of these setback requirements. Properties that are 10 acres or larger are allowed to have a cumulative accessory structure footprint of 3,969 square feet, excluding the first 1,000 square feet of attached accessory structure space. However, property owners can exceed this limit through a conditional use permit. Based on the survey provided by the applicant, staff estimates that the current accessory structure footprint is 3,392 square feet, and well, that looks like it's a typo, but the proposed structure would result in a cumulative accessory structure footprint of around 7,205 square feet. The applicant survey didn't identify the exact footprint of the existing structures on the property, and so as a condition of approval, just so that we can have it be clearly stated within the resolution, the survey would need to be updated to clearly label the footprint of the existing structures on the property, including the attached garage on the property. The building height itself is going to be consisting of sidewalls that are up to 20 feet, where a maximum sidewall height of 10 feet is allowed. Property owners can exceed that limit through a conditional use permit, and that's what the applicants are also applying for here tonight. And then the overall height of the structure is 25 feet and does not exceed the 35-foot height limit of the rural residential district. The proposed structure would be constructed with high-rib steel siding and roofing. Metal siding and roofing is an allowed use within the zoning ordinance, provided that it meets the Minnesota State Building Code and has been treated with a factory-applied color coating system that would protect against any fading or degradation. The applicant has provided documentation on the materials that are to be used with this project, and it does comply with these requirements. The proposed eaves and overhangs of this building exceed the minimum length requirement of 12 inches. And while there are no architectural interest requirements for accessory structures within the city code, the commission has the option to impose additional architectural treatments or design enhancements if the scale or size of the wall does not meet the conditional use permit criterion of the use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity. Additionally, there are no landscaping requirements for accessory structures listed within the code. However, previous approvals of larger accessory structures have included landscaping requirements as a mitigation measure from the visual impact onto adjacent properties. So again, the commission can impose landscaping standards if they find that the size of the accessory structure is injurious or to the use and enjoyment of other properties in the immediate vicinity. And the proposed plan appears to show that water is draining away from the proposed structure. However, the final grading plan will need to be reviewed and approved with the building permit application. So going into the conditional use permit for the footprint, the maximum accessory structure footprint allowed for a property of this size is 3,969 square feet. Currently, the site has an approximate accessory structure footprint of 3,084 square feet. That was a typo earlier on in my report, so staff's estimate is 3,084, but the survey is going to need to be updated to confirm this measurement. The applicants plan to construct a new 3,813 square foot structure, which would increase the accessory structure footprint to around 7,205 square feet on a 19.5 acre parcel. This can be allowed through a conditional use permit, and without going through all the conditional use permit standards, staff finds that the additional accessory structure footprint meets the conditional use permit standards outlined in section 1070.020 subdivision 3. As for the conditional use permit for the height, the proposed structure would be constructed with sidewalls that were up to, looks like that's table, 20 feet where 13.5 feet is allowed. Accessory structures may exceed this limit if they comply with the specific standards of section 1030.020 subdivision 5D, which are listed on the screen. Staff finds that these conditions for the sidewall comply with the standards outlined above, and there is an added condition that the site survey be updated to clearly measure all existing structures and accessory space on the site. So at this point, staff would recommend opening the public hearing and taking testimony, and staff also recommends approval of the draft resolution approving the conditional use permit for the building size and the building height.
Thank you, Dwight. All right, so at this point in time, we will open up the public hearing. If there's anyone here who would like to make public comment, I know the applicant is here, so there's two other gentlemen. If either one of you would like to approach the podium and speak regarding this issue, let us know. Otherwise, we will make a motion to close the public hearing. Someone want to make that motion?
I can make it a motion.
Excellent.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, so then I'd like to invite the applicant up to, if you could, try to stay under 5 minutes, but I don't want to cut you off. And then you're welcome to address anything that was raised or just give us your narrative.
Yeah, Josh Branstead at 7121 Old Settlers Road here in Corcoran. We've lived at the site here now, we're going on our 5th year, so excited to be here. I don't have anything really earth-shattering to share. I think Dwight did a nice job. More than happy to answer questions. I don't think any of the conditions were problematic, so.
Perfect. Is it possible to just pull up the green, it's the picture that's right on just page 1? Only out of curiosity, because we're talking about those like additional impositions of landscaping standards, which I feel like based on the site like are not necessary because your closest neighbor, there's like a total amount of trees between your property. But could you just point out where, for our sake, just so we know whereabouts, it doesn't have to be perfect, but where you're planning on building the additional accessory structure?
Yeah, so I think with my finger, I'll just go up here for it.
Sorry, thanks. I should give you a pointer, but I don't have one.
So the edge of it, we've got it staked right now, actually. It starts right here, about where that truck trailer right there is, and it goes north. It just ends short of this gravel right here, so it's
Basically behind the
So
existing.
these are, these trees back here are about 40 feet tall. They step down to about 25-ish, maybe getting up to 30 through here, that area. So really, if you drive down Old Settlers, you'd be able to see it from this corner and then probably through this area. Once you get to this area, it would be short.
Perfect, thank you so much. Does anyone else have any additional questions for the applicant? Otherwise, we can,
So it's basically screened, I mean, 40-foot tree, if, you know, you've got a high
Yeah.
canopy, you can still see through it, but it's pretty much screened
Yeah.
with undergrowth or whatever else.
Right, exactly. We have a lot of, underlanes growing through there
Neighbors
as
are-
well.
Neighbors aren't put out by,
I don't
possibly
believe so.
seeing it.
We're out there about every day riding horses, roping steers and doing all that stuff, so,
I think you got a basketball court in there?
yeah, half of it is for the kids, the other is just stuff, all of our stuff inside, so.
Maybe an RV storage or something.
Yeah, we have an RV that we'll put in there, and then a couple horse trailers and a bobcat and a tractor.
Yeah, I feel like we've seen accessory structures that tall because of campers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
and so that's the only thing I want to highlight is that, I know it's not the only thing on the CUP, but, and so both of the items tonight that we're requesting sidewall heights had additional reasons to apply for the CUP, but I just really want to emphasize that, I'd love to alleviate that for our residents.
Yeah.
It does, so this at 25 is about 7 feet shorter than the existing barn too. And then that also, obviously also has its, the cornice on top too.
I'll make a motion.
To approve?
Yeah. Does anyone have anything else? Okay. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
And all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, and so then this will, a recommendation will go on to council, and so they'll review it at an upcoming meeting, the one at the end of November,
November
22nd.
Okay.
You're the quickest one and you had to wait all night.
I
Oh my
know,
God.
I got to hear everything that's
That's
going
good.
on. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Have a good night. At this point in time, there is no one from council here tonight to give us an update, but I am sure that I'm not speaking incorrectly when I say if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to anybody from council for an update specifically. And then planning project update, I just had one question for staff. And that is I was reading through the update and just noticed that, again, we're, as a city, putting restrictions on hours of operations for the M and J Creekside. And that's an agribusiness, and that's just, I know I saw it on Quick Trip, and we see it here, and I'm just a little wondering, sort of, what does that look like?
I think the
If
hours,
it-
so, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the
Hours of operation?
yes, the hours of operation that maybe were identified by council were more related to amplified sound. So I believe the window of operation is gonna be well within what they were proposing, but there was additional stipulations regarding amplified sound. Is that, or do you have anything to add?
Yeah, during the meeting, the council had some concerns of, I think there were some discussions of being at weddings, that these types of venues that go on late in the night, and they know that those weddings can get kind of rowdy and such, supposedly.
Band.
I don't know.
But isn't there an additional okay,
So, yeah, so part of that is that they added a condition that any noise or sound amplification after 8 PM would require approval of the sound waiver permit. And then they were hearing some of the concerns from the neighbors to the site. And, they felt that a good compromise was that the operation would be, ceasing operations by 9 PM. And it sounded like that was within that was well within what the scope of what the applicants were looking to do anyways.
sure, I totally believe that. The update said, and thank you, but the update does indicate the hours of operation be limited to 12 to 9, Thursday through Saturday, and 12 to 6 on Sundays. And while that may be within what the applicant finds desirable anyway, I guess I'm just concerned with constantly having hours of operation limited or set by council.
Fair, I can see the concern. I would say, especially in the rural residential, for example, a true event venue condition or interim use permit, they would also have hours of operation stipulation. I can't talk today. This is what happens when Dwight does all the talking. I forget how to talk. So again, those hours I think are until 10 o'clock in the rural residential, but theoretically, council that even further, depending on what the use. I think the idea is we're trying to find a way to balance the residential with the commercial, and a compromise of that is trying to get hours that can kind of work for everybody. The hours were set in discussion with the applicant. It wasn't a way to really curtail the applicant's proposal, because it was with what was proposed by the applicant.
Totally fair. I just sometimes, well, I believe that there's a lot that can just be determined by wanting to have a good business and be a good neighbor as well. So it's just, to me, it's something I am paying attention to, because I think it's, so anyway,
I'll also
thank you
add,
for the clarification.
I'll also add, I think that the benefit of the IUP, and the fact that that wasn't necessarily written in code, but that was the stipulation of the IUP, is once they have some data and the neighbors kind of see that it's not so bad, I think they could come back in a couple of years and be like, okay, we have success, there haven't really been many complaints, we'd like to extend the hours by a couple hours. I think there's still room for that discussion later.
I just would rather see that that permission is given in the beginning for a new business to thrive, and then respond to any kind of actual complaint, rather than sort of not even being operable and having that sort of limitation, because the data could definitely be impacted. Again, in this case, the applicant sounds like those were hours that, and I remember them indicating they're not trying to be, and they're not even really going to be open potentially more than 4 months a year. It's just more of a statement on, I'd like to see us as a city giving people the opportunity to thrive. But thank you for the clarification, and I know that that's just sort of a little bit of a soapbox. Liaison calendar, if anyone is going to attend, it was updated by Seth, and so it is on there. And then just note that the second, mine is, so perhaps you can take a look at, so it has Linda as next week if she wanted to participate, and then Zachman is on the 25th. That is a Tuesday due to a holiday. I can show you the rest of mine.
I'm also not seeing anything under the planning project update.
Those were
Cover page that really doesn't have anything on it.
Those were added just earlier this week, so we'll take a look at the iPad afterwards and see if there's an update maybe that needs to be done, and that's why you don't have them. But I did receive them, but not until like Monday or Tuesday of this week, so they were uploaded a little bit later.
Yeah, I just updated it today too. It says right here, updated 11/5.
I would reach out to Deb or the IT person whose card, yeah, just to see.
I was gonna ask, is the process like email out the packet and then upload to Granicus?
No, that was a
Later?
mistake.
No.
That was a fluke?
Well, sometimes there's updates that happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
But typically we want the entire packet in its entirety to you by Friday, uploaded before we send out the email. But yeah, especially with the council packet, sometimes there's information that comes in or something wasn't able to get done by the deadline, so there might be an update.
Well, and there's the intention of having it posted and like published to Granicus before we even send you the email.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it sounds like that was a mistake this month, but
Okay.
typical practice will be that it's published before it even gets sent to you guys.
Fair enough. Solid. Okay.
And if there is nothing else, then I will make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and anyone opposed?